What's up, everybody? Steve here. So who is responsible to teach all of us about money? You see, we have a growing dilemma with people overspending, living beyond their means, and ultimately living paycheck to paycheck throughout the United States as well as other countries. When I was growing up, my father always had the same thing over and over. He would always say the same things. Basically, turn off the lights, or your shower, get out of the shower, it's too long, you're wasting water. Or if we're at dinner or whatever the case is, he's like, make sure you eat everything off of your plate. And now don't get me wrong, I am extremely grateful for what I've had growing up from my parents. And I'm sure some of you who are watching today have had some of the same experiences. And my father was frugal in that sense, and it had a lasting impression on me. And I really went at a young age, I was like, does everybody live like this? Is everybody kind of tight on money? And I asked myself, could I grow up not worrying about money? And now these are all questions that I pondered, which is one of the main reasons why I strive to be financially free and ultimately took the necessary steps to achieve it. But I didn't know what that was at 10 years old, and it wasn't until my early 20s until it finally clicked. So the question lies, who is responsible for teaching us about money? Is it our parents? Is it our schools? Is it our churches? Is it our friends? Is it our family members? Is it YouTube? The problem is there is no clear answer. But if the world revolves around money, currency, trading, and bartering, why is money and the education of it not at the top of the list within our education systems to teach? I don't know about you, but growing up and in school, I don't recall a single conversation about money. And even in college with a business management degree with an entrepreneur concentration, there is very, very limited talk about money and specifically personal finance. But why? Why are children and even adults neglected on education about money and personal finance? Let's take a closer look. So let's talk about the home base and parents' financial literacy. Look, let's face it, most adults are not financially astute. So if parents can't manage their own finances, how can they possibly teach their children? And sadly, they don't. And adversely, they show off bad habits and poor financial decisions, which their children in turn absorb and learn from, ultimately creating bad habits for those children's financial future. And ultimately, those children follow in the same footsteps as their parents. What about teachers in our school systems? Unfortunately, it's outside of the curriculum. The teacher's sole responsibility is to ensure that children get good grades, and unfortunately, the topics and subject matter is irrelevant to real life. You see, teachers are under this type of pressure to ensure that their grade levels are up, and ultimately, if they are not and the entire class are really just getting poor grades, it could jeopardize that teacher's tenure and even retirement, and ultimately their job. So why would a teacher teach outside of the curriculum? For one thing, they don't have time for it. As mentioned, they have to put a lot of time on the curriculum at hand to ensure that students are educated what's in those books and to ensure that they get passing grades. So they don't have the time to educate, nor is it their job. Now let's talk about the employer. You know, you've probably heard, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a good job, and retire in 30, 40 years with a pension. Now that sounds great, but that is pretty dinosaur mentality because ultimately that's not how the world works any longer. And the employer, if you think about it, they don't want you to be financially educated. They don't want you to be wealthy or financially free. They want you to kind of really rely on that paycheck because ultimately if you are reliant on that paycheck, you are stuck in that job in order to support your family. And unfortunately, those who are relying on one employer, I think are gonna be in big trouble. Maybe it's just me, but I really don't have a whole lot of confidence in big companies and our government for that matter. Relying on others is a huge mistake in my opinion. Just look at the pensions these days. They've been robbed for decades, and I did another video on my pension being stolen or my pension being robbed. I forget the name of it. I'll put a link in the description below. But Robert Kiyosaki, the founder of Rich Dad Poor Dad, did forensic analysis of pensions in dozens and dozens of companies. The unraveling is sad and scary, so be sure to check out that video. And now let's talk about government. Government's gonna take care of us, right? Now, do you think government on a local, state, or federal level really has you and your family's best interest at hand? I mean, let's just look at how the federal government spends tax dollars. Social Security is expected to be bankrupt by 2034 if nothing happens. Medicare, according to Forbes magazine, is expected to be insolvent by 2024. Our national debt is $24 trillion in 2021 right now, and it's only going higher. And that equates to $225,000 in debt per US taxpayer and $84,000 per US citizen. Be sure to check out usdebtclock.org. I'll put a link down below for you guys as well, and it's mind-blowing. Check it out. And let's look at what the Fed's currently doing with all this money printing and pushing us further and further into inflation. And many people will say we're headed toward inflation, but folks, we are here. Think about the last time you went to a grocery store. Let's say you're a family of 4. Have you left the grocery store and spent less than $100? Probably not. So I think I'm gonna do another video on this, on what should be taught in schools. And I just wanna run through a quick list that just kind of came to mind. I'm sure there's other things to add to this list, but some things not limited to self-esteem, respect, real history, not rewritten like they're trying to do right now in schools, personal finance, budgeting, community service, gratitude, reflection, work ethic, personal hygiene, cooking, cleaning, gardening, interviewing if you're going to interview for a job, preparing for that, entrepreneurship if you're trying to go into business for yourself or maybe create a side hustle for yourself, specific trades, whether it's being a mechanic, a HVAC, a nurse, a doctor, whatever the case is, learning about mortgages, learning about debt and the difference between good debt and bad debt, learning about taxes and sales taxes and federal taxes, learning about government and really how it works and the differences between the left, right, and the middle, self-defense, and again, there's a lot of other things that should be taught for real life for people to really get ahead in life and be prepared when they're coming out of high school or whatever the case is. So what can you do right now? One thing I recommend is write down all of your personal expenses and start to eliminate what you can eliminate that you don't need. Another thing you can do is continue to watch videos like this, and I have another video coming up next on how to create financial freedom for you and your family, and it's more simple than you think. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you guys there.